All righty. Good morning, folks. How y'all doing? How's everybody doing today?
Doing great.
Oh, good, good.
Amigo Pride.
Eagle Pride. Yeah, yeah, that's right. Oh, by
Oh,
the
is
way,
that the new way?
she's
Ah,
an alum. She's an alum. So, she,
teach me. Oh my gosh, I've been showing my age.
no, it depends on where, because most people like Eagle Pride like this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they've been doing like this. That's
See, that's what happens when you're a transfer.
the,
They set you up.
yeah. But um, good to see the folks that are here. Appreciate you coming out. On this wonderful Saturday morning. I know it's a beautiful day outside, so we're going to try to make this worth your while for being here. Um, Honored to have this lovely lady, and she's really industrious too. Hopefully, we can keep her attention for the time we have her. Uh, you know what I'm saying? Um, but she's an actress and so much more. And I just want to like cut her loose on you and I want you to, since we have a smaller group than normal, first of all, almost everybody has their video on. Um, and if you have questions, put them in the chat and I'll ask her when she comes up for air, because I'm gonna let her get going. And she can introduce herself and let me make sure I've given you share screen privileges. If you have a question, like just kind of put it in the chat first, and I'll call on you, and then we'll get her in, and she'll respond. So, ladies and gentlemen, Miss Camille Cower.
Thank you. Wow, what an introduction. So I have to at least kind of share how I met Brett. He was my professor, and also he helped me with my work study when I was at Central way back in
Long time.
2000 something. Yeah, very long time ago, back when Eagles were this way instead of this way. Who knew? Well, anyway, so I actually majored in sociology, um, but if I had known then, I probably would have majored in mass communications because it would have been so much more helpful in the sense of just knowing more from the base because I had to learn so much more from like on my own in a way when everything pivoted. So to back it up, how I got started, my family actually works in the entertainment industry. My father is a movie producer. He worked on Girls Trip, New Jack City, Friday, trying to think what other stuff you guys might know. Waist Deep, Illegal Tender, a lot of different things. Soldier Story. I can go on and on. But anyway, so a lot of those times I was on set with them. And so at first I thought I wanted to work behind the scenes as a makeup artist because that's where all the magic seemed to really happen, the transformations on screen. But what I also learned from working underneath my parents was how important it is to create those relationships because a lot of those friendships and crew members he worked with from when he first started in the industry in the 60s, he still works with to this day. And he's 77 just as of the 17th.
What?
I know. He's a pescatarian. He works out all the time. He looks 45, maybe 50.
Wow.
It's not fair because every time we go out somewhere, people are like thinking we're boyfriend and girlfriend, and it's kind of weird. But yeah, he's very healthy guy.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Quick
it,
question for you. Did he
sure,
work
sure.
on White Girl?
Yes, here in Durham. That was
Yeah,
filmed
he
here in
worked on
Durham.
that one.
Hmm
And then
with
what was the movie with Christopher Williams?
New
Uh,
Jack City.
New Jack was that New? Yeah, New Jack City, where he played the accountant.
Yep.
Yeah,
And my mom was a stunt woman on that as well.
when I interviewed Christopher Williams, we were talking about the director, and he said, "No, the director
Uh,
didn't direct that one. Your father directed it."
my dad. Yeah, well,
He was
I,
first assistant, but he said every time they needed some real direction, they looked to your dad, and he goes, "No, what he means is." Go ahead.
no, that's fine. Look, I always love hearing great things about my dad. He's pretty awesome. And Mario Van Peebles was the director for that. So I I think that was like his first film maybe. So he was still new and learning his way, getting his voice, which is very important and something I wanted to make sure you guys, with being in mass communication, that's one of the main things I know I've felt like has helped me a lot is learning what exactly you want to do in the industry and what are the kind of morals you want to stick to, because that will help you so much as far as who and what you're willing to deal with or your boundaries that you want to set. The hours you want to work is so important. Even now with everything going virtual, so many people are feeling burnout because they're not limiting it. So the skills you're learning now with school, especially with it being virtual, it will help you a lot. And then with communication, like I was saying, and learning your brand or who you want to be, it's important because whether you decide to be in front of the camera or behind the camera, you want to know your niche. So you make sure you make those connections, because the kind of people that I've made connections with, like, I mean, I met Brett for the first time when I was very young, and he's helped me tremendously as far as just, I didn't know what NABJ was. He introduced me to that and got me opportunities to meet other people. And that led me to meet a lot of great people at boot camp last year at St. Aug, where I got to meet Roy Woods and interview him and speak with him and talk to him, because he was actually planning on filming here in North Carolina, but HB2 and some other things kept him from it. But I was able to get a video of him saying that, like just taking those times to be like, oh, this is an opportunity. I know filming, because I work in the entertainment industry, means a lot to me. And I just recently heard, because before you go somewhere, you might want to Google who all the speakers are to see if they align with what is your brand or what you care about. So then when I had the opportunity to approach him, I did. And I was like, hey, by the way, what do you think about HB2? And he told me, I was like, can I get that on video? Absolutely. And so I put it on Instagram, put it everywhere, and it helped me grow my audience. But it also gave me that courage to be like, oh, well, if I could do that with him, let me try with other people. And that's where I started doing my own podcast. Well, I started doing a radio show with the sports shop here locally, because again, I bulldog my way through with relationships in a way where I'll introduce myself, make a point of saying, hey, why don't you have me on your show so I can talk about the business of education or the business of entertainment, which you guys had the speaker last year, Monica Benton, here, where she had all these different celebrities that came to Durham to talk about how, not just celebrities, but even Tyler Perry's vice president from his studios came into town to explain how important working in industry means building those connections, because the connections you're making here, even in college, could be people that you end up working together, help each other out. Because if one of you is really good at editing, one of you is really good at videography, you guys can work together and create your own content out there. Go ahead and put it out, because that's what a lot of these employers are asking. What were you doing during the pandemic? What were you doing while you had all that extra time, so to speak? Make your own content, put it out, whatever you want to do. Start building those relationships, whether it's on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. I put all my links in there, so feel free to reach out to me as well. But even when I was working in the film industry, I started off with my father's help, but then my parents divorced. I stayed here in North Carolina. I was able to get my Screen Actors Guild, which is the union here, right here in North Carolina. I was able to build a lot of it here, even though I didn't have my father to help me with it. I was able, it was just a matter of, I was willing to work hard. I started as an extra, kept making those relationships with casting directors. And so when the opportunities came up, they called me directly. So I was able to audition for Dawson's Creek and get a starring role on it because of that. But it's making those connections. Oops, I'm already over the time I told him to
No, he's here.
and a guest. He is.
Yeah, he's here.
Oh, you should have told me. I'm like talking like I don't see his name. So speaking of boot camp, I'm very excited to bring in one of my first quote unquote interviews with a celebrity, the one and only. Like, you have the drums and the trombone.
Yeah, but the drums are in the other room.
So you want to help me out here? I don't have a button. I'm such a control freak.
Yeah, I just have to give him a shout out because he was over in Raleigh last year for the NABJ boot camp, and he was just really generous with his time and his energy with our students. One of our students asked him a question and came for him, and it was like so much fun just watching the interaction between this man, Roy Wood Jr., and the students. And we're blessed to have this man. I watch him on Trevor Noah on,
How's everybody doing?
11, 11 o'clock Monday through Thursday with the social distancing show. And he's a comedian, and he's a really smart comedian. And I just want to just thank you so much, my brother, for coming and sharing with us. So, you and Camille, go.
Well, thank y'all for having me. Thank you for the invitation, Camille. I know it's Saturday. I know everybody tired. I know one of y'all in a car in a Waffle House parking lot somewhere in the cut. It's all good. Whatever you got to do to learn this stuff. But yeah, happy to talk for a couple minutes. Which way you want to go?
Well, I'm just so excited that you were able to join us this morning. So thank you for that. And you're going to be in the area June 21st at Raleigh Improv. So we got to make sure we shout that out.
You ain't got to
No,
shout
not
that
anymore.
out yet. That's COVID pending. We gonna see what it's looking like. Come June. That's tinted. That's in pencil. That ain't in
Look,
concrete.
it's
But,
not virtual.
no,
No.
I got to pull up. If I'm gonna do comedy, I
Okay.
got to be in person. That's the thing that's really weird about journalism now
Yeah.
is figuring out how to go about getting a good interview out of somebody within this box. Like that, for what we've been doing on the Daily Show, that's probably been the biggest hindrance. Like Trevor willing and dealing because he at the crib, but the correspondence, everything we do is out in the field. So, and then on top of that, Viacom, CBS, like as a parent company, they are hella careful about not letting us go out for jokes. They'll let the other journalists go out, but a traditional journalist travels with a smaller crew. They have a much smaller footprint. You might have a cameraman, a cameraman and a tech guy, or a cameraman and a sound man. We roll two cameras, like it's like for one field piece, there's
Producers.
probably
Yeah.
8 people behind the camera making that happen because we need a lot more camera coverage for the sake of comedy.
So
Right.
you mentioned that it's been more difficult making that connection with doing interviews. So do you have any advice on how you guys are able to get over that? What's been the roadblock?
The biggest play, is big energy. More often than not, if you're interviewing someone, if you give them the energy you want them to give back to you, more often than not, people will mirror your energy or make an effort to. So, I could come in like, no different than this call where welcome Roy. Hey, how y'all doing? Versus what's going on? How's everybody doing, man? How are you doing? All right, so let's talk about it. Your company is doing the thing, the ba-da-da-ba, the ba-da-da-ba. Because if you think about it, more often than not, when you put this interview package together, your ass ain't gonna be in it. I'm sorry for cussing, but you're gonna edit around and just only show their half of the interview. So it don't really matter what you do. Like if you're getting into a full conversational interview, that's a little different. But if you're just doing one man bands and you're just going out and grabbing sides, and your VO is gonna be the connective tissue through all of the piece, nah, raise your energy, but especially in these Zoom conversations, raise your energy as best you can.
Now, with everything that's been going on, it's great to hear directly from you what you think about with the pandemic, Black Lives Matter, the elections, and having to cover all that as a Black man in a very, well, at least you're working with Trevor Noah, but a lot of people might not be that lucky to work with such a diverse newsroom. So do you have any suggestions on how to handle that, or even bring in comedy and such serious topics?
You can try and lighten things up, but I think what you all have to make sure, what you have to be cognizant of is that you're telling Black stories for a white gaze for the most part, right? So what I try to do is create a story that confirms something that Black people already knew while also informing non-Black people, white people. while also informing white folks about something that they may not have known anything about. You know, like we have a story that we're gonna do. It'll be after the election. I'm sorry, that's my child. 4-year-old's going 4-year-old. I can't control that. Um, we have a story we're gonna do after the election about the mortality rate of Black women, you know, that died during childbirth. And so a lot of that comes down to this is a story about Black women, you know, for Black women. And then the way you couch that is to also sprinkle in a conversation about healthcare because you're going to be going into spaces, you're going to be going into newsrooms where low key, we don't know if all of this diversity initiative and every corporation going, we love Black people now. We don't know if that's corporate posturing or if they for real about that. And low key, if Joe Biden wins, there could be a creative turn in the content that's created where they want to get away from some of the wokey woke content and telling your unique story because we have a Democratic president now. Calm down, Blackie. We can just go do whatever we want now. Let's get back to the BS news stories. So you got to stay on them about it. And you just basically, if you can't get those stories approved, you have to trick them. You have to figure out ways, or at least I found that I had to really put in. I give you another good example. So when Trevor Noah first took over the Daily Show, it is his show. His name is on the show. But then there were also a lot of producers from the Jon Stewart era. My first two stories out the gate, my first two stories on the Daily Show, we did a ride along with the Madison Police Department 3 months after they had killed an unarmed Black man to have a closer look at their anti-biases training. And then my second piece was me taking a trip to the Million Man March and interviewing a brother from the Nation of Islam and Dr. Greg Carr, professor of African American Studies at Howard. Like, that is the blackest damn segment on the whitest show. Like, hey, white producer, I want to go walk with Black people as we remember the Million Man March. I'm gonna talk to a Muslim brother who low key don't fool with real media like what y'all do here. And I'm gonna talk to a brother that is 1 degree away from just moving back to Egypt his damn self. And I would like to figure out a way to make that funny. And I'd like to put it on your channel, please. And so they said Trevor was with it, but the way you had to help get the other producers to wrap their head around it. So 5 years ago at the 20th anniversary of the Million Man March,
I was at the first one, by the way. I covered
I
it.
wanted to go, man. My mom was like, boy, I ain't putting you on no Greyhound to go all the way up there. I'm like, it's going to be Black men. Somebody going to look out for me. She's like, you got to go to school. I was still in school, high school. So the motto for the Million Man March, the 20th Million Man March, was justice or else. And, you know, we were coming off of the heels of, you know, not that much different than now in terms of needs for police reform and unarmed Black people getting gunned down. And the or else part to me was funny. And it was funny in the sense that we're so fed up as a race. We ain't even got enough room to write all of our problems on a sign. We just got to put or else. So the joke was going to find out exactly what is or else. What does or else mean? So we went to a bunch of Black people. Oh, he got the legit proof. He done pulled it
Look,
out.
he came out with the receipts.
He pulled out with the Polaroids
Okay,
right there.
Owen. Look, that's
These
media
youngers don't know
training.
about no photo album. Look at you holding an Instagram account. That's what a photo album is. It's just Instagram
Wow.
on
My
paper.
dad came to visit me at the SAT truck.
Look, now that's some 90s fashion. Look at that color blocking.
That's right.
Journalism.
Ah!
So
Love
I had
it.
to just represent the OG for the original Million Man March. That's what
oh man,
I
I love it. I love it.
respect. So here's how I got this story out the door. Because really, what I wanted, what me and Trevor wanted, was a story that showed the grievances of Black people and everything that Black people are going through, right? But the comedy in it was going to the white side of DC and asking white people what they think justice or else means? What do you think the or else means? When a black person says or else, what do you think that means? And it was a man on the street piece, and you asked the black people or else, and they all said, or else we vote you out, or else we march, or like it was all righteous stuff. We went and asked them white folks what or else meant, and you already know what they were saying: riot, fear, scared, or else they're gonna get us. And so that was the comedy. The comedy wasn't showing just how out of touch we are as a nation and not even realizing what black people's grievances are. And also y'all low key kind of scared of white black people. So that's how we got the story out the door. It could never be, for the network where I work. And at that time, it'd be different now because Trevor's 5 years in. A lot of those producers have revolved out. But at the time, Trevor inherited a show with a staff that had a different way of thinking about the Daily Show because they worked under Jon Stewart for 20 years. So getting them on board with this new ideology, it took creatively figuring out ways to twist a pitch into something that they could process, and I still get to go out and do what I wanted to do, and they think they got what they wanted. But low key, I just wanted to show a piece to show black people out there acting right, screaming for the right things, and on the low, we can also show how misunderstood we are by white people. So when I say think about your pitches like that, that's the type of stuff that eventually you'll have to start, crafting. Also, when you think about your pitches, I would say consider trying to find the third side to an argument. Try to find the thing that's not being said on a grander scale, or the curiosity that you may have about the issue. A lot of issues are going to be A and B, but follow conversations about the issue. Like as you start figuring out your story that you want to pitch or the story that you want to do, don't just read the news articles, read the comment sections. Go on YouTube and take a deep dive into the discussions that are being had by just regular citizens on an
You mean
issue.
bots? Just kidding.
They're not all bots.
I'm
It's
just
like
kidding. You can tell the bots.
64%.
They have like 0 followers, no
Bots
profile
don't cuss.
pictures.
So if they cussing, you know it's a real person. So just look for the cuss words, and all right, that's a legit person. So like Reddit and news boards and stuff like that, those are places where a lot of people are going to have a lot of different opinions, and those opinions and perspectives are things that you could bring into your article. That's not stealing. You're simply creating a conversation around this issue by using the opinions that are already out there about it, and that could help give you an angle on it. So as best you can, don't just research the information of a story, research what opinions are already out there about the story, and that'll help give you something that's more unique that you can present to people.
Okay, I want one more question before I open it up, maybe if some other students want to ask questions. But you mentioned about the importance of media perception around Black people. Can you share more about how we can really speak up and advocate, because they're doing a horrible job of representing us in a way, like just like you said, the or else being so violent and aggressive as opposed to what the or else really means to us. Like, what can we do? Because all the stories or a lot of newsrooms, it's a matter of with the protests, if it leads, it leads. Like they don't want to show the protest when it's gentle and people are getting along and poetry and so on.
I think one of the bigger things we can do is when it's not times of war, try to have pieces that help to reflect the humanity of us, so that when they try to tear us down, there's at least something that's a moralistic foundation has already been laid in people. So just make sure that this is a terrible thing to say, but the way I'm going to say it, it'll make sense. Make sure in the time between police unrest, in between police shooting us, that there are also stories that feed into the goodness. We tried to do one, and it's probably going to get pushed. This is another good example. This is a story that our problem at the Daily Show is that we only got 30 minutes, well, 45 now. So we don't have enough time. The way this administration is just always tearing us down, tearing us down, tearing us down. So this is probably another post-election piece, but there's a brother in Milwaukee that's built a community garden in a food desert because most of the black people in the hood don't have any access to any type of decent grocery shopping. And then
Central,
we turn
they don't
around and
have it
have
near
all
that
the,
school. Like a lot of
yeah,
HBCUs, they don't have nice grocery stores nearby. I know they didn't when I was there. It's
nope,
just
they
like
didn't at FAMU. Am I
bodegas.
allowed to mention FAMU on
I
this, or
mean,
is
you
that
got
like,
the
is that
shirt
rude?
on. We can see it.
I wasn't gonna say nothing about it.
Look,
I was just
that's
gonna
all
let
right, though. That's all right.
You're like Rebecca Grant, we had all
it.
this semester. Yeah, we got
So there's, are they repping? I
Look,
see
I'm also
Greg.
going to say Samantha B had me on her show, but y'all hadn't yet, but that's all right.
Oh, we working on it. We working on it.
Okay, thanks.
So there's this thing where this brother has this community garden in Milwaukee where he just plants vegetables and just lets black people come in on the honor system and
Mhm.
take what they need to feed their families. That's the type of stuff that we need to see more of. And, that's going to take a little bit of digging when it comes to researching because to find these little rocks, these little nuggets under rocks, you got to read a lot of local news. You need to follow a diverse array of people on the internet, not just your friends and the people that make you interesting, or create a burner account that's strictly for research. And just follow interesting people from different places who look like they got their ear to the street on stuff. Activists are real good. They're a real good follow because activists will be putting you on the people 3, 4 months before the local news even knows who they are. So that's an easy way to get a scoop on something. But as best you can, find the black people that are doing good things and pollinate the news cycle with those stories when the news cycle isn't being dominated by murder, death, kill, which is what the media loves.
yeah. Let me interject real quick. It's just a tidbit. Did you hear about the HBCU down in Texas? They got rid of their athletics and now they turned their stadium into a garden, into a farm.
No,
Yeah.
no.
And they're using it to teach them how to do entrepreneurship. They're doing everything from microgreens to hydroponics and all this kind of stuff. And they're selling it to the restaurants. Yeah. I'll find a link while you're
Okay,
talking.
love that.
That's okay. Well, that sounds like another
And I'm
post-election
available
story to me.
Look,
by the way. I'm available, just to put that out there. I'm available as a producer.
Oh yeah, yeah. I let them know. I let them know. Where your Million Man March outfit?
I will.
with
I
the
will.
stripes, please. Well, is there any students that want to ask questions? Do you have time? I want to be
Oh, we
Yeah,
got
yeah, yeah.
respectful
We
because I know
just
it's
yeah.
busy time.
like I told him. All right.
Question.
Stay ready, be ready.
That's right. Stay ready, be ready. Who got a question? I know.
Oh, I do.
I'll call Sandra. Go ahead.
Yes, first I just want to say thank you, Camille and Roy, for making time to speak to us today. So my question is, as a graduating senior, how did you utilize your HBCU to kind of make your own success after post-graduation?
Um, my situation was a little different when I graduated. So I came out 2001 broadcast journalism, but all of my experience was in radio and not TV. So I sought a radio job, and radio low key is very, very easy. It's a very easy job to get because it pays trash. And I was still doing stand-up comedy. So I was kind of supplementing my income with road comedy or whatever. But there's an entrepreneur from Birmingham. He died years ago, named A.G. Gaston, and he was one of the first black millionaires in the state of Alabama. His black-owned bank, funeral home, and he's got a couple restaurants and stuff like those. All still stand to this day. And so A.G. Gaston had a motto, and his motto was find a need and fulfill it. And so I think when you look at journalism, my first radio job that ended up getting me the radio experience I needed that ultimately got me the internship. There was a radio station that I listened to every morning that didn't do news. They had a morning show. It was just two guys. It was a small market local station. I just straight up emailed the program director and I was like, yo, I'm a broadcast student. Y'all don't do news. You want somebody to come in there and just read the news every hour? And he was like, hell yeah. So I would come in every morning, before my morning classes, and I would do 3 or 4 different news reads for them to give them one per hour. They put them in the can. And then lo and behold, the comedian that was on the show was also a school teacher. He left at 8:30. So on days that I didn't have morning classes, the host would let me sit in and just be a co-host from the 9 o'clock to the 10 a.m. hour. And that essentially was my audition tape that got me the job in the internship in Birmingham, which ultimately, got me on the payroll. But I just think coming out of school, you're walking into a marketplace that is scarce. You're walking into a marketplace that is very, very cheap. So the more that you can engineer on your own for yourself, in addition to an outlet, I think you have to do as best you can to create the content that you want to be hired and paid to do. So if you don't have a camera, I promise you there's somebody young with a camera. And, for where we are right now, yeah, you need a camera phone to get the job done. You can get a lightning lav mic for your camera phone. And there's a lot of, also, I would say educate yourself on fair use when it comes to news footage, because you low key could put together your own packages and post that online if you wanted to. There's a lot of brands out there that just post content, like they just recap the news or just recap what's going on. If you want to do entertainment, you want to do sports. Sports is way more litigious when it comes to footage, so be careful with that. And, again, create a separate account for it if you want to, but just look at ways that you can create. And the easiest way to do that is to find other people that are just as driven as you are within your community. And I mean, a simple, like literally, if you went on Twitter and you just typed in, I don't know, North Carolina camera dude, I promise you somebody in there is going to be black and they're going to be driven. And you go, hey, look, I'm a reporter. I'm trying to shoot one quick thing. You want something for your reel? I need a segment. And you'll be surprised how much more symbiosis is out there than what you have. Because I think that's the one thing that I hate that I didn't have in college. They didn't teach us networking. Now, no way am I saying FAMU is an inferior institution. However, I will say that my professors
Saying that.
did not do a good job, or there was never a part of the curriculum just about meeting people and connecting with people, because that's as important as knowing how to white balance a camera or writing a strong lead sentence. Like, no, you also need to know how to find people that's doing what you're doing, because it's going to be a struggle for a while.
You need someone to also advocate for you. You never know what jobs they may know, and they're pulling you in as well. Like I was mentioning that before you came on. It's important. Make those connections. Your friends can look out for you one day. You never know. Or colleagues, not necessarily friends. Anyone else want to ask a question? Because I want to also ask about your pilot and TV show.
No,
Because you
Deidre's.
didn't film it here because of HB2.
Hey, I'm sure Deidre's. She always ready for a question.
Come on.
Yes, yes. Hi. Thanks so much for being here today, Cam, Camilla, and Roy. I tell you, you guys have already dished out a host of great stuff. So, at any rate, thanks again. Chambers is always going beyond the call of duty. I have a question. I have an interview coming up. I do freelancing, sports and entertainment analyst work. I'm in the NCCU Hall of Fame here, WNBA free agent. So I like diversity, flavor, and content. So I have an interview coming up with a A1 actress in Hollywood, Brooks Lewis. Any pointers you want to give me as far as how to conduct that interview?
What's the position for?
I'm sorry?
What's the position for?
I'm interviewing her as a analyst and interviewer. I'm interviewing her.
Sitting down.
She's
Sit
gonna,
down.
Got it.
yes, I'm creating.
I thought you were
I'm gonna-
interviewing for a position. Got it. Different.
yeah,
Okay.
we're gonna do a live podcast, and she's gonna be my host, and I'm going to interview her, and so I wanted some tips on, how to conduct that interview, maybe some questions that I could ask.
That's easy. That's easy. I didn't mean to cut you off, but what's her name again?
Her name
Brooke
is
Lewis.
Brooke Lewis Ballas. She married probably 2 years ago. She's really wonderful. Her and I befriended each other on IG, and she has just became very, very very, very nice in reference to her reaching out to me and want to pull me in and try to help me and mentor me as much as possible. She's a
Okay.
filmmaker. Yeah, she's an actress.
Yeah.
She's a filmmaker.
Screen
She's
queen.
a screen queen.
Yeah. So I'm looking here. This is just a quick YouTube search. This is just first page results. I see a 36-minute interview. I see a 2-hour interview.
Yes.
I see a 4-minute interview. I see a YouTube channel with about 15 more. About 15 more films or whatever. So if I'm you, the first thing I do when I'm trying to interview somebody, I try to listen to 3 previous interviews that they've done, and I try to make my questions. Well, it's different for Daily Show. Right now, I'm just going in radio mode because morning radio is more the traditional back and forth that you're talking about. So when we used to do morning radio, I know that I got this rapper or this actor for the black play or whoever. I know I got them for about 30 minutes. Comedians are easy because they kind of run their own thing, but you have someone that is waiting on you to drive the energy of the interview. Um, I try to watch 3 previous interviews, preferably from 3 different years, because normally if you watch 3 interviews that all happen within the same year, it's usually because they're promoting the same project. So the conversation tends to go in the same places. Longer interviews are better to watch than short interviews. Short interview, good morning, North Carolina. They're going to ask the same goofy questions. Tell me about the movie. What was it like working with that actor? Were you ever scared? Like blah. The longer interviews is where they're going to get into some deeper stuff, some more interesting stuff. And as you listen to the interview, any curiosities that you have while listening to the interview, that's a question.
Okay.
And so now you have a question that is derivative of something that was already said by the interviewee. So they know that you've done your research. So now they're going to perk up a little bit more. They're going to be more into the interview because they know that you aren't going to ask the same, oh, so how did you get started? What was it like? It's not. I've also found that that why is more interesting than how.
Yes.
I've always found that to be a longer answer of a question, and an answer that can take you down a bunch of different rabbit holes because you know, when did you get started? Well, I started comedy when I was like 19. Well, why comedy? Why did you like right there? That's a different path. Or what did someone think of you? What did your parents think? But I just think using previous interviews that you've seen this person do and letting your curiosities help fuel what those questions will be, because now you're more interested as well because it's something you legitimately give a damn about.
Yes.
Why did you do the horror movie instead of that movie? Go look at her IMDb. Go find that first project that she did. Like those are. So when you're trying to formulate the questions, I think you start there. She's got one right here. Breaking the Chains Foundation Netta Walk. That smells like charity. So go look up that charity and really dig in and do the homework on that charity. And like that's something that could easily procure 2 or 3. Why was that issue, big to you? Why was that issue important to you? And they'll go a couple of different places with you. But I just think it's easy to ask questions that they already have answers formulated for because they've been asked those questions a million times. And
Okay.
the good interviews don't ask those questions, or they get to the answer a more interesting way. I think the answers to typical questions should be part of the question. Like typical question should be part of the answer to a typical question should be part of the question, never the answer. I think if you start there, you're going to be in an interesting place. That's radio. The Daily Show side of the game is a little different because we do interviews in a sense where I know what you're going to say because we've had a pre-interview and all of that. I know which way you're going to go on this issue. So I'm just here to get this in the most truncated form for a particular, like I'm trying to think. We just did a panel of black voters to see if they like Biden or not, and one dude on the panel was screaming Trump left and right. These are the same people I interviewed back in December, and I know anytime I go to the Trump brother, he gonna bring it into Trump and why y'all just black people voting Democrat, y'all stupid. So I already know what I'm going to get with him. So then it just becomes a question of making them entrench themselves in their logic,
Okay.
which is that's a different interview, but you're trying to get them to solidify their logic. I know you're a Trump supporter, but really, man, even after everything that's happened with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and the Black Death Rise and unemployment, still Trump.
Central Park. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and this dude said, not only am I still Trump, I'm Trump more than ever.
I remember that.
So now, but see, now that's a different question. That's a question that's beyond who you're voting for in November.
Right.
I like Trump. Okay, moving on. It's why. Really? Even after this, and this? Damn right. This, and this. So that's and then this goes for everybody on this call as well. This is going to feel weird to do, but if you have an opportunity, even if you can do it online, take an improv class. Take an improv class. An improv class, I know it's technically for comedy, right? But what it also gives you is a skill set of being able to think fast and pivot on questions that are happening in the moment without thinking about it. It is a skill, it is a muscle that you have to work. And you're going to come into an interview with your set list of questions, and then they're going to say something in the middle of that interview that in your head you're going to want to deviate towards, but you got your list and you're treating this list like a bunch of commandments that once you go down this list you're done. No, this is a conversation, this is a journey, you have to follow those threads. A good person to watch is Jordan Klepper. Jordan Klepper, in my opinion, of all of the Daily Show correspondents, better than Colbert, better than John Oliver, better than anybody that has done the job of Daily Show correspondent, to me, is Jordan Klepper, because he does it all outside. And it's not in a room in a more stationary setting. This boy just goes out and talks to Trump supporters all day.
Mhm.
And when you see the conversation happening, they'll take an answer. His next question is rooted in their answer. But a lot of that is all to drive to a point of making completely sure I understand that you feel this. And that's all the comedy is saying, do you like this? Yep. Even though it's this? Yep.
Yep.
Even though it could lead to this? Yep.
Mhm.
So that's one. Those are two ways. But this isn't the type of, just in looking at her YouTube, this doesn't seem like the type of person that you need to confront about, racism. And
Well,
she doesn't
well,
strike me as the kind.
she's definitely not a Trump supporter. So we on the level of sister. We talk pretty on the regular, and she's really cool person. She's really
Yeah.
cool.
Here's a video. Actress Brooke Lewis meets her bridal gown designer. How many wedding gowns did you try on before you settled on the one?
Oh, she would love that.
Let me go on this.
Anybody on camera with their wedding designer want to talk about weddings?
Yeah.
So, and low key, if you got questions that you really want to dig in on, these are the questions you ask off the top to butter her up a little bit and make her warm to you. And now she's more likely to open up about the real thing that you really wanted to ask. That question that you got way down on your list at number 14, you better make friends, questions 1 through 3.
Right.
Just to, but not just make friends, but establish, I've studied you, I've read, I'm here to have a meaningful interaction. Because the moment the interview subject feels that, then they're going to open up. And I don't care if you're talking to an actress or you're talking to the county comptroller, go to his Facebook page, see what the hell hamburger he like. and then ask them about that. Just those things. And those are also things that you can do sometimes at the Daily Show, because we don't have a lot of time. We don't have a lot of time in a room to go into deviations. I'll do a little bit of research on a person's character, and those are the conversations I'll have with them off camera while we're setting up microphones and, doing the last looks of the lights and all of that stuff. Hey, man, I saw you had a dog. Them dogs be biting. I heard corgis. There was a lady in DC. She had a corgi, and we talked for 15 minutes about corgis. And then the moment the camera turned on, I was like, "Why are you trying to end Michelle Obama's school lunch program, you evil witch?" Like, I didn't yell at her, but she felt less threatened by me in the interview. You know what I'm saying? Because but we were talking about dogs. He's a nice Negro, and it made her open up more so we could get what we wanted.
Yeah, and let me just point out that everything that Roy's talking about, sometimes people say, well, you're at a network show and you're at a show that has budget. These are the same things that I did in local TV. And it's like, whether I'm like some of the same types of people he talks to. I've interviewed Bishop Tutu before. I've interviewed Alvin Toussaint back when the Cosby Show was really hot, and about his role and how he developed that. I've interviewed Nobel Prize winners, but I've also interviewed a guy who was in the Army and was the first people to ever let his face be shown when AIDS kicked out in the 80s.
Wow.
And he did that just because of what Roy just talked about. It's like we had a conversation, and then when I got ready, was leading him to the set, we had a little back door that he had to come in. That was how he did it back there, and he had the silhouette. And he said, no, I want people to see my face, man. I trust you. And I was like, whoa, okay. But it's that whole idea of what Roy just went through. Is you have to do your research on people and do your research on the subject too. Because I've seen people that have just started doing their interview and they look kind of silly.
I have a story about that. We had
look silly.
There was a situation where a comedian came in and everybody did their research. Nobody did their research but me. And so while they were talking, he was like, do you guys even know who I am? Like, he said that on air to them because the questions weren't rooted in anything to do with him specifically. It was very generic. So then when, of course, me being a true fan, I could list off different shows and different things he's done and just made him more comfortable. So the conversation pivoted towards me, and it was an amazing experience. But it could have very easily have been like, no, you don't get to come to my show now for free. After y'all suck. I'm never going back to North Carolina. Or, it could have really... So be prepared. You just never know. Like Mr. Roy Woods, I didn't get the confirmation from him until midnight last night. So of course I was like, let me make sure I know everything most recent about him and be prepared. You gotta keep up.
Yeah, and because Roy, she didn't even tell me who it was. She never told me who was coming.
Why she didn't tell you?
She said, I got a surprise.
What if you didn't show up? You have kids. I have kids. I understand. And by the record, when you called me, I had YouTube playing the Eagles' homecoming. So that's what I thought your son was doing. I was like, dang, he's good. So I just wanted to clarify that I'm not crazy. It was just because YouTube was still playing the drum line. I was like, no, let him keep playing. No. I miss homecoming.
Yeah.
But anyway.
What about anybody? Let's see. Who else? Let's see. Shauna, this is like your first time on, isn't it? Hello? I guess.
Oh, she's muted.
Unmute yourself.
I didn't know you were talking to me. You said my name wrong.
Oh, okay. Correct me. What's your name?
All right, it's Shania.
Shania. Okay.
Yeah, Shania.
Pretty.
Do you have a question?
Okay. How was it like venturing off into like different, I guess, career paths? Does that make sense?
I don't know if scary is the word because it's also exciting, but
Right.
you just trust your instincts. So if there's more stuff that you want to do, what's happening now. A lot of journalists are storytellers, right? So I think it's only making sense that a lot more journalists are drifting into TV writing and movie writing and short films. And I think that that's a very realistic matriculation or something to do, on dual paths. I mean, even right now, COVID shut down the comedy clubs. And if I go back out, it won't be before a vaccine. And so,
Right.
I've spent more time writing. I was already writing some shows and trying to produce some stuff with other people here and there, but really focusing on that in addition to just working on a daily show. I'll be real with you. Journalism moves fast, it is unforgiving. So it is good that you have multiple pots on the stove because I've been fired twice in radio. One of them you can Google when we get off this call. I found out I was fired on Twitter. This thing is cold blooded. So like
How did I not find that?
I woke up to like 50 mentions. And I thought I was dead because everybody was tweeting me like, "Man, we loved you, man." I'm like,
Yeah, that's
what?
terrible.
Oh, that's
So,
awful.
and the game is the game, though.
Yeah.
That's how they're gonna do you. And your day is gonna come if you only have one pot on the stove and you don't want to starve. So when you ask how was it, it's
Okay.
crazy, but it is comforting because you know that for as long as you're trying to do many things, and don't let anybody tell you that you're doing too much.
Right.
You're gonna get one of them in your life. You're gonna mess around and you're gonna share too many of your dreams with somebody that was scared. And because they scared of their dreams, they gonna say, "Man, why you doing all that?" That's because they cowards. Go for broke and push anybody out the way that doesn't back you on that.
Okay.
So, whatever things you're feeling like you want to do outside of journalism that you didn't take a class for, I promise you it's a YouTube tutorial for. I promise you there's a virtual workshop for it. Hell, I give you my master's class password if you want to log in over there. Like it's plenty of places where you can learn to do all of these other things because a lot of us were raised by parents. I know we're not in the same generation, but I feel like we're just getting to a point as Black people where this concept of only being one thing is finally starting to universally seep in. The multi hyphenate, as they like to call it now. But that
Multiple
wasn't a
streams of
thing.
income.
Yeah. I came up in that time, I came out of high school in 96. So, back in those days, you go to career day, you pick a brochure, and that's what you do. You don't do nothing else. You might can go to the army, do some army reserve, make a little money, but this is the one thing that you do. Where, by the time I started trying to follow my own path, I was coming out, I was working in radio, I was doing stand-up comedy. I had prank call CDs that I had online. There's plenty of people that are doing live shows. If you want to perform, go do that stuff. There's a young woman in Birmingham. That's who y'all gonna get on next. I'm gonna give you Eunice Elliott's information.
Okay.
All right, Professor, I'm gonna give you Eunice Elliott's information. So Eunice Elliott is a stand-up comedian from Birmingham, and she started out as a writer on my morning show. And she worked her way up from writer on my morning show. One day, the traffic, I shouldn't be telling people, but the girl that did traffic had a car crash
Trust
because she
us.
was drunk. So essentially, she caused traffic. And so they pulled Eunice off of my morning show into the traffic studio and had Eunice do traffic that entire morning. They fired the other traffic girl, kept Eunice. Eunice stayed on and did traffic for about 2 years at the radio station. I don't want to give away her whole story, but essentially, she freaked a traffic job all the way up into being the morning news anchor on the NBC affiliate in Birmingham. The gift and the curse of that, though, was that her job wasn't allowing her the flexibility she needed to continue doing comedy. And ultimately, it took a while, but Eunice quit a network, a morning news job, anchor desk. She quit it in the middle of COVID to become a children's author.
Wow.
And her book is selling gangbusters. So It's
Plug the book. Plug the book. Don't stop there.
I got to go find it. It's
Oh,
Bella
okay.
Loves, I think it's Bella Loves Dogs. No, I'm not gonna plug the book. They gonna have Eunice on, and Eunice gonna spit some game
So they plug in your book.
about that journey to get there, and then just straight jumping. I'm like, bruh, it's Corona. Go and sneak your resignation letter off that man's table. She was like, nah, I want to go do my stand up, and I want to write because that's what makes me happy. So that'll be a fun person to talk to. But yeah, that's keep multiple pots on the stove, Shania. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I'm gonna do a plug, but also share that same kind of story, but short. Since you're one of the correspondents, I'm gonna give you this lead. Have you ever heard of a place called Soul City?
No, Soul City.
Yes.
It's in North Carolina. It was developed by a black guy named attorney Floyd McKissick, who was also a civil rights activist and attorney in Durham. I'm working on a documentary about it, but I think the way you do your comedy, that would be one heck of a little skit for you guys to come down and do. Something called Soul City, and
Soul
it's in
City.
North Carolina. And here's just a little short story. My brother-in-law is an artist manager, and I pitched it to him because he manages people like CeeLo Green, Big Killer Mike, stuff like that. So I pitched it to him, say, hey, I may need your help on this. He's like, I'll help you out, bro. So about a month goes by. He calls me up. He's like, hey, there's some people trying to buy this city down in Georgia. I was like, okay, so why are you calling me? And he said, I need your opinion of this. I said, tell him to go look up Soul City. That stuff I sent you about Floyd McKissick. It's a black-owned city in North Carolina. That's your model. He was like, oh yeah, I remember that now. He called me like, yeah, man, that was helpful. Thanks.
All right, so that was OG.
Mike and T.I.
I wish them black people in Georgia wouldn't have told everybody that they was doing that. They should have just done that on the low.
They should have. But anyway,
that's
Greg.
a separate conversation.
Yeah, Greg had a question.
I'm Greg Stevens. I'm a mass comm major. It's nice to meet you both. Thank you for coming. I just really had a question about starting a podcast. I mentioned the Champions last week, and he said Camille was the one to talk to. So,
Well, I'm curious. Wait, yeah. Roy, do you have any advice on this as well? Because you guys have a podcast with Trevor Noah's show in a way.
That's the other thing, man.
Let's get him in first.
You can podcast from your phone. You don't even need a real microphone, and I can figure that out. I'm gonna put my email in the chat here, and so everybody, take that down or whatever. But in terms of starting a podcast is easy. You just need a unique point of view, and you need the discipline to do it every week. Watch, rinse, repeat, and eventually it'll grow. I mean, it's the trick is just having, good opinions. And when it comes to marketing a podcast, that's kind of a separate conversation. But if I'm you, I would be taking snippets. So I have a podcast that I'm starting. No one even knows about this publicly yet.
Do we have an exclusive too?
Oh, yeah. And so essentially the podcast it's called Roy's Job Fair. And what I'm doing, I'm speaking with people, small business owners and corporations that are currently hiring and having conversations about their occupation in an effort to, one, let people know where some jobs are, but more importantly, to spark ideas of where to look for work where you live. Because there's a lot of jobs you may not have considered or even thought about. So it's that. So it's an hour-long show. So we just chopped down the pilot last night. I spoke with a lady who's a doula. She talked about getting into that world, getting your Erykah Badu baby delivery game on. We spoke with a lady that she runs a Hello White cultural festival in Canada, right? And they basically, she didn't say it like this, but they're basically looking for black people to hire to be cultural directors to help them blacken up this festival. And black artists are going to know what other black artists are. So that's the type of job where that's going to have implications in the States where there's a bunch of white ass festivals that I'm sure need black artists. And if you're not careful, they're going to all get the same 8 black people. So if you're a black person that's a curator, go step to one of these festivals. So that's
I mean,
that's
think
the
about the
idea.
Harlem Museum, because it was a big deal a couple years ago that it was a white curator at the Harlem Museum of Art.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So the idea for marketing the show is to take those snippets
Mhm.
and pollinate them in places in social media where those conversations are already happening, either around employment or about, it could be about just being a doula. All right. Well, just take the snippet of being a doula and drop that in on a couple of Facebook pages and, Twitter conversations or what have you. But, if you're thinking about starting a podcast, you're already halfway there and the itch isn't going to leave. And you're going to feel like you're talking to yourself down a black hole, for a long time. But don't don't stop doing it. Most podcasts fail because people just stop. You stay long enough. There's a brother out of North Carolina that you should look into. The Black Guy Who Tips. I don't know if you all are familiar with this podcast, but he's out of Charlotte. It's a dude named Rod, him and his wife, and they just have great chemistry. They've been doing that podcast almost 9 years, and they just now got a distribution deal, I think, with it's either Stitcher or Spotify. And so, when you talk about deals like that, you get a podcast that's monetizable somewhere around 8,000 listeners. So you could be getting anywhere from maybe $500 to $1,500 an episode in ad revenue. On the high end, as you grow your podcast, like if you're acquired by a network or something, you legit could get, I don't know, 150, 200,000, $200,000. I mean, so, but you have to grow the audience, and that takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of honesty. So, if you're thinking about doing it, man, jump on that.
See, I knew you should have went first. Now I feel all goofy telling my story.
No, tell your
No, I'm
story.
kidding. So like I mentioned, I was working for the radio here locally and had to pivot because I have a 12-year-old and I couldn't work from the studio anymore. So I did it from home. I started with using a third-party software called BeLive. I did it as a talk show with the E-Spot with Camille. So I would interview different people that worked in the industry because I work in the film industry still. And I was like, what am I going to do without my people? I need to stay creative and listen to others, how they're staying inspired, what they're doing, and just kind of figuring out what to do next and how they even made it in the first place and different like roadblocks they overcame, because we all get so many no's. It's nice to hear how they overcame it. So anyway, 127 episodes since March 25th. And as of September 12th, I took a break because Virtual Academy was killing me, keeping up with all of that. So I was like, I'll come back. I'm co-hosting on another podcast, but there's a lot of free information you can get out there as far as like what you mentioned, learn Google Analytics to some extent so you understand all that with SEOs and making sure
Yes.
Google Analytics, Blueprint, not Google Blueprint, Facebook Blueprint, as far as learning how to market it from that side. Instagram, I mean, they have free options and then there's paid options. Take as many as you can, look for them, find them. There's free options or student options that might be free. Because Google has this program called PDX, or at least Google PDX, I think. Rosario Dawson and someone else, like Retta, they have a podcast on there, and they're always looking for fresh new voices of diversity. And they have a lot of free content on YouTube of classes you can watch. Like now with everything being virtual, don't limit it to just your location. Look for things everywhere, because you'll be surprised what kind of connections you can make that's beyond your zip code that could lead to the next opportunity. Because since so many things are remotely, you could be working for NBC in North Carolina, you know what I mean? Or wherever. You could work for Mr. Roy Woods, maybe even remotely one day. You know what I mean? Like, that's one of the things about having multiple streams of income, is that you can pivot very easily to wherever you're needed. Like I had worked before with BeLive, so I knew how to use it again, but I did not know how to use all the social media and marketing. But I took classes that I learned and got all the audio equipment, found out gaming headsets work a little bit better when you're on Zoom. So, you learn what works as you can. Never stop learning and making those connections, right? For guests and so on. Join all the Facebook groups you can about the topics you're interested in. Because, like you said, reading those comments or making the connections to be a guest and share guest. There's like women of color podcast groups, people of color. Like there's so many different options, or even just the topic you might be interested in doing. Because what are you interested in doing a podcast about?
Yeah. Beeman wants to ask a question.
Oh.
Go ahead, Beeman.
All right.
Hey, I wanted to first say thank you guys for speaking to us today. I am Malcolm Beeman. I'm a mass communication student. And what I do freelance, and I do freelance photography and freelance videography. But I'm all down for taking on as many opportunities as possible. But when do you say, okay, like enough is enough? Like I can't keep doing this for either free, or I just can't keep giving all my time to hop on these opportunities and not work on bettering myself. So I know I just want you guys to speak on that for me.
That's a question only you can answer. But the moment you make that stand, stand on it. And it's a choice everybody on the Zoom is going to have to make for themselves eventually, is when you stop doing stuff for the exposure and for the experience. If you feel like your reel is tight, then presentation dictates perception, and you start being upfront with people about your rates. And if they say no, then you step off. And that's something that I to this day, 22 years in a comedy, I still have to deal with at the crib, because that's going to be the bigger issue, brother, is that where you live, you will be respected the least, because everybody knows you and they're familiar with you, and they expect these benevolences from you. So sooner or later, you're going to have to leave anyway and expand your circle to other places and other people. What I have found works best is to offer it to one person for free in exchange for the portfolio to charge someone else. Just on that presentation dictates perception stuff, that I was talking about earlier. I used to have radio stations, well, that's a separate conversation, but it basically just make sure I agree with that, because then eventually what happens if you're doing that, especially all in the same area, you become the one that everybody can get for cheap. Word gets around. Word gets around too. So just be careful about that. But, if you've done a couple of things, or, another thing to do is to do it for money, and then give them a little extra, give them a little more than what they paid for. And then they can go, oh, I really recommend you to somebody else. So that's another way to play it. It's not necessarily always about working for free as much as it is do them the same way these companies do us. Put a little something extra in the bag. You go to McDonald's every now and then, you get an extra nugget, it'd be some fries in the bottom of the bag.
Yeah.
Give them whatever the photography version is of extra fries in the bag.
Like those extra downloads.
Yeah, because low key, people will appreciate added value. People respect added value more than they do free work. It's weird, but Camille, I didn't mean to.
No, that's what I was thinking. I just recently turned down a job because they didn't want to meet my rate. They kept negotiating. I'm like, no, I've worked too hard to work for less than that. I need to be able to invest back in myself. I know how much I've worked. I know how much I've paid for classes as well, because not all of them has been free. And the memberships, look, SAG union membership ain't free. I got to pay that every 6 months. So yeah, no. I mean, first starting out, of course, you want to be able to do that, maybe bartering, looking out for each other type stuff. That I understand that, because there's definitely people that I work with that I'll do stuff for them because they do stuff for me. But you got it, like you said, you'll be known as the person they can get on the low.
Yeah. Let's get somebody else in here. Genevieve, Miss Ellis, you got a question?
No, I didn't have a question, but thank you for coming to the Zoom. It's very informative, and I learned a lot.
Well, thank you all. Thank y'all for having me. I really do appreciate this. I thought I was going to kick it with y'all for 10, 15 minutes, but, we done done an hour.
Right. That's CP time.
I want to get Jordan. Jordan's been on
with it.
Time. She was on early.
Yeah, I got here. Well, what's the saying in the film industry? You get there 15 minutes early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jordan, you have
So
a question?
CPT doesn't really work. Although BET would make you think otherwise.
I'm good.
Not in the least. Well, if anybody has any questions, my email is in the chat. Take it down. Hit me up this year, next year, 5 years from now. Whenever the itching comes, just reach out. I'm always around. And like Camille say, I probably won't reply till 1 in the morning because that's when I'm up playing PlayStation and
Get you when I can, man. I don't sleep,
playing catch
so
up on stuff. Be running rugged until then. Yeah, that's it, man.
Thank you.
thank you so much. I appreciate it. You make me look cool in front of the cool kids. Oh, I still
Oh,
got it
please.
wrong. I don't know. I gotta
Oh,
learn.
please.
I really appreciate it. You're awesome.
It's all
Oh, wait,
love.
everybody want to do a selfie real quick? I know they want to do a selfie with
Yeah,
Mr. Roy
yeah,
Woods. Go
yeah.
ahead and get your smile on real quick.
Yeah.
Everybody done screen grabs. You getting one?
Yeah, look, let me get one too. What is it? Control option 4? I always forget.
Yeah.
3. Control option 3.
Oh, I'm not see.
Hold on. Let me
Control.
get the big controller.
You must. No, you don't have a Mac. Why am I listening to you?
I have a Mac.
No, Roy doesn't. Telling me some wrong numbers.
I thought it was
Oh,
3.
control option
My
3.
bad.
What?
It's Command 3.
Aha!
It's Command Shift 3.
I
Somebody
don't know. I
send me
have
the
an old
picture.
Mac up here. Yeah. Whoever gets one, send it to us all old cats.
Well, I could do it like this. Hold on. Boop. I think I already did it. Hold on.
Yay, I see a hand in it.
There we go. That's Deidre.
Poor DJ.
Deidre done blocked her
I'm
face.
Look, we're trying to get the Hall of Famer in here. Come on.
okay. I'm sorry. I was recording. I
No,
was
it's
trying to
cool.
record and get some pictures.
Well,
Sorry.
we want your face in it too. Oh, wait. Okay.
All right. Yeah, we got everybody.
Yeah, I put a
That's
screen.
cool. All right, y'all. We all have a
Thank
good
you
one. Y'all
so
keep in
much.
Thank you
touch.
so much.
Good to meet everybody. This was fun,
Thank
man.
you.
Reach out,
I
brother.
This is
appreciate it.
great.
City, brother.
All right, I'm gonna send you Eunice Elliott's information.
Okay.
Trust me, she
Send
is.
me too. I want her on my show too.
Yeah,
Jeez.
she
What am I,
is a fun
chopped liver?
person. All right, y'all.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks again, Roy.
Give Trevor our best.
That was so exciting. I'm so glad he showed up. I didn't want to set you up and then he didn't show up. So, because you never
That
know.
would have been like jumping because we met him last year, and he was just so cool with us and spent a lot of time with us. So, and I mean,
Wow.
I say us, I mean the whole crew, all the people that were at the boot camp,
NABJ.
the NABJ boot camp. He just sat around and just talked to people to the point that it became this conversation that was ongoing, and people like Camille took advantage of it, leveraged it, and just did some really cool stuff. And I forgot the young man from our school. He just graduated too, back last year. But he was like really up on Roy a lot, and Roy responded and would follow up with him. So I'm just really grateful to you, Camille, for reaching out to Roy, have like a little reunion crew. And but folks, when you talked about
Look, for the record, I emailed him last week. Okay, he just didn't reply till last night. So I was almost like, do I ask somebody else? I got it.
I'll tell you, when you said you had a celebrity guest, a surprise,
I wanted to throw it off.
I thought you were going to bring your dad on.
He's not waking up this early unless you paying him.
He's LA time. Yeah,
especially to talk about work.
Yeah, that's 8 o'clock LA time. So yeah, because that's what I thought it was. That's what I really thought it was. I thought you were gonna bring your dad on.
Next time, maybe. Now that I know that he's requested,
Anybody have any
other later class? Just kidding.
Well, we technically are over, but my backup time is until 12:30 because I like to have them out by then. Does anybody have any questions specifically for Camille? Right,
sure, go ahead, teacher.
Yes. Do you have contact information that you would like to